murdered in cold blood and left dying in his brother's arms.
What? No!
He just said, I can hear you, Tig, but I can't see you.
The latest in the search for 16-year-old Becky Watts. The rise in acid attacks.
I remember, my face burning.
And the killer so brazen he went to his victim's funeral.
He actually knew Claire and her family, and this was a very, very dangerous man.
Live for the next hour, this is Crimewatch. Good evening and welcome to Crime Watch. We are live for the next 16 minutes with the latest crime investigations, news and appeals. Dozens of detectives are standing by the phones, all hoping that you can make a difference and crack their cases.
Yes, with your calls we can track down this lot. Amongst them, men wanted for robbery, kidnap and rape. And talk about keeping it in the family. Unbelievable CCTV coming up, revealing how careful choreography with headscarves allowed these chances to make off with 30 grand's worth of jewellery.
And I'm standing in for Matthew this month, needing your help to find the bogus policeman caught on camera.
Police officers? Oh, do you? OK. Yes, OK, come in.
We've come to visit you about, obviously, you've had a previous break-in before in the past.
Oh, yes.
This dodgy detective is wanted, along with the rest of his gang, following dozens of distraction burglaries at elderly victims' homes.
But first tonight, we hear from Tiggy Singh, who ran a successful food wholesalers in Manchester with his brother Charlie. He was on his way to the last job of the day on a Friday night in October when he received a call which turned his world upside down.
Hello? Yeah, put him on, put him on! You've been shot! Stay there, I'm coming to get you!
Everything that me and my brother did, we did it together. We worked together, went out eating in the same restaurants and drinking in the same bars together. If you wanted a perfect man, then my brother was the perfect man. When the kids grow up, I want them to turn out like him.
Brothers Charlie and Tiggy Singh started their food business from a market stall 15 years ago. Today, the company supplies hundreds of restaurants from a warehouse in the Openshaw area of the city. On the 31st of October, younger brother Charlie was preparing for the usual Friday rush.
Our goal was to come into work, do our work, earn our money, go home to the family and enjoy that, and hopefully one day get to a point where we'd be able to work less. The business has effectively, over the last 15 years, become a baby. You know, my day could be 17, 18 hours a day, and Charlie's was very much the same. And as business people, you know, you never really switched off. Friday tends to be one of our busiest days in that it's very intense because most of the orders that go out tend to go out very early on. Once you've kind of got rid of the morning rush, it then probably becomes the most relaxed day of the week. By the time it got to sort of say 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, you'd be thinking to yourself, you're kind of in weekend mode. Because that was Saturday was really our day off. So you think, well, you know what, Friday night we'll be able to go out with the girls, have a bite to eat or something like that.
Hey, bro.
We actually finished work a lot earlier than we normally would on a Friday. So you know, when I left Charlie, I said, "Are you ready, our kid?" He said, "Oh, another 5-10 minutes, I'll be done." I left the warehouse before him.
See you, mate.
After Tiggy left, Charlie cashed up. It took him around 5 minutes to pack a bag with £28,000 before he and a colleague locked up and headed for his car, which was parked directly outside. Yeah, what's up?
The two things that Charlie said to me was, he's taking the money, and that he'd been shot. And my immediate reaction was, F the money, are you okay? And he didn't really answer that. All he said was that he'd been shot. You know, I'm picturing loads of things in my mind. He's been shot. How's he been shot? Where's he been shot? How many times has he been shot? I can't explain that feeling, but it's like your heart just dropping right into your stomach. I've got here back to the warehouse, and Charlie's sat in his car. At this stage, I've still managed to speak to him. I've got a paramedic on the phone. She's told me to give water to Charlie, to keep him conscious, keep him talking if I can. I've fed Charlie water, I've put water on his face. And I can't forget that feeling of, you know, being able to put water on his face and feeling his beard. But since then, that kind of like makes me think about it by just doing that. You know, I'm expecting to see a puddle of blood. I'm expecting to see like a massive wound. And one of the things that I did do was lift up Charlie's T-shirt, because I asked him where he'd been shot and he showed me. And there was like a little black mark. It looks okay, I can't see any blood. I've actually touched his wound, so there's no blood on my hands or anything like that. So that kind of gives me some sort of hope. And then at one stage, he wasn't responding to me. The last words that he said to me, he just said, "I can hear you, Tig, but I can't see you." And his eyes were fully open. I mean, my brother was just, he was just so strong to the very end. Because there was, at no stage did he show excruciating pain. And if these people get arrested, it's not going to bring our Charlie back. But the one thing it does is, it gives my brother and the family justice. It means that we've got people like this off the streets. Who's to say that these guys aren't going to do what they've done again? So please, 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 I beg you, if there's anybody out there, please just help.
Well, I'm joined now by DCI Richard Eales from Greater Manchester Police, who's leading this investigation. There's no clear reason for Charlie to have been targeted, is there?
Charlie was a hard-working family man. He was well loved and respected. This was a brutal cash robbery, and I should say the company have since reviewed their security measures.
The night in question was Halloween last year. You've got some CCTV to talk us through. Tell us about this.
Yes, that's right. Charlie left the building just after 6 p.m. At that time, there were two men outside in the car park. They drove directly towards Charlie. One of the men confronted him and shoots 3 times, hitting Charlie once. He then stole a bag containing a large amount of cash, and they then left in the same car. Charlie died a short time after.
A large amount of cash in the bag, as you say. What about the bag itself?
Yes, we know that the bag contained £28,000 in cash. It was a large Armani messenger bag. This is an identical bag. We need to know where this bag is now, where it was in the weeks after the murder.
Can you give us a description of the killer's car?
Yes, we know the car is a Seat Leon. We've filmed the route from the scene, and we understand the car has turned left onto Parkhouse Street, and emerged near to the old Greymare Lane police station. We need to know where the car is now. We need to know the identity of that car.
And Richard, you've got an artist's impression of the gunman?
Yes, that's right. We believe the gunman is a black man. He's around 6 foot tall with short black spiky hair in a knotted style.
Now, significantly, the gun that was used in this killing is linked to a murder a few weeks earlier.
Yes, that's right. The gun that was used to murder Charlie was also used to murder Kieran McGrath on the 4th of October last year. He was shot outside the Sheldon Arms public house in Ashton-under-Lyne near Manchester. 2 men arrived in the car park on a motorbike and Kieran was shot in the chest. He managed to drive to Ashton-under-Lyne police station where he collapsed and died.
And in fact, you have got some CCTV from that very police station to show us tonight?
Yes, that's right. 2 men were stood outside the police station at that time. They are witnesses. We need to speak to them. They may hold vital information.
I should tell viewers at home that Kieran's mother decided to speak to us about, well, the importance of catching the people responsible.
I know I'm not going to get my son back. I know Kieran's never going to come back. I know that for a fact. But I get justice for him. And they pay for what they've done. Because they need to pay. They need to be brought to justice. A lot of people know who's done it and why they've done it, and they just need to have a heart, think how I'm feeling, and his family. It has wrecked our family.
Finally, Richard, there are big rewards in both of these cases.
Yes, we're offering £25,000 for each investigation for information that leads to the arrest and conviction for Kieran and Charlie's killers.
OK, DCI Eels, thanks very much for updating us. So, a family left without a father, and Tiggy, as we saw earlier, without his brother. If you can help, do the right thing. Call our studio now. There's the number, 0500 600 600. Time for Wanted Faces next with Martin.
First up tonight is 24-year-old Jake Smith. He's wanted by police in Lancashire in connection with an armed robbery in which a woman and her 2 sons were tied up and held at knife point. Humberside police also want to question him about the kidnap of a young woman in Hull. Smith, who has very intense blue eyes, has friends in Merseyside, Cheshire and Blackpool. And how about Victor Lakatosh? Do you know where he is? He's wanted for questioning by West Yorkshire Police after an 89-year-old man was attacked and robbed on his own driveway. The victim's injuries were so severe that he was in intensive care for a number of days. Lakatosh is 41 and has links to Leeds, Keighley and the Bradford areas. Face 3 is Rumel Haylet. If you live in the West Midlands or Shropshire, keep a close eye out for him, as he's got contacts there. Police want to question him about the rape of a woman and the theft of £2,000 worth of her own jewellery. He's 24, has a gold tooth and a tattoo which says "Fearless." And finally, for now, we have Carl Atkins. He's wanted by police in Norfolk after a man was stabbed 7 times in an attempted robbery. Atkins is 26 and has a Midlands accent. He's lived in Coventry, Northampton and Great Yarmouth and has a tattoo around his belly button saying "Made in Tile Hill." Now, these first 4 faces are all considered dangerous, so should not be approached. Just dial 999 if you know where they are. If you need to take another look, they're all on the website and available on the red button until midnight tonight.
Now, a roundup of the latest crime news, and police investigating the disappearance of 16-year-old Becky Watts have arrested 2 people on suspicion of murder. We can go live now to the BBC News correspondent John Kay, who's in Bristol for the latest. John, a very good evening to you. What can you tell us?
Well, Jason, it's a week and a half since Becky Watts vanished, but tonight things seem to be moving very quickly in this investigation. You can see forensic teams have erected a tent outside this property in the Barton Hill area of Bristol. They're searching out the back and the garden as well, and they're searching another property in the Southmead district of this city as well. Now, we've heard this evening that 2 people are in custody, a man who's 28 and a woman who is 21. They were arrested on Saturday on suspicion of kidnapping Becky, but we're told now that they're being questioned on suspicion of murder. Of course, Becky's family are said to be distraught by these latest developments. She's said to be a very sensitive and shy 16-year-old, but remember, she has not been found, and police want to hear from you tonight if you have got any information about one particular car. It's a black Vauxhall Zafira, the registration plate there HY06 HYA. Did you see it on Thursday, the 19th of February? That's the day Becky vanished from the St George area of Bristol, or in the days after that. They also want to hear from you if you ever owned that car. Jason.
John, thank you very much indeed. A candlelit vigil has been held for a murdered teenager in Islington in London. Alan Cartwright was cycling with friends on Friday evening when they were attacked by 3 men. The 15-year-old suffered a single stab wound and managed to cycle away, but collapsed on Caledonian Road. He died at the scene. Anyone who has any information should call the Metropolitan Police Incident Room on 020 8345 3734. An Olympic athlete is appealing for the public's help after one of her prized possessions was stolen during a burglary at a home in Sutton Coldfield in the West Midlands on Tuesday, the 17th of February. Kelly Southerton, seen here getting gold medal for winning the heptathlon at the 2006 Melbourne Commonwealth Games, has said she's devastated. The thieves have taken some of her medals, including this one. The former heptathlete and 400-metre runner was asleep upstairs when the burglary happened. A laptop and money were also stolen.
The fact that someone's come in our house while we were asleep and touched our personal possessions, and knowing that we're upstairs is creepy. My Commonwealth gold medal was my first international medal. When I look back at it now, I'm really proud of myself, and I know it's something that I'm never ever going to achieve again. And these medals aren't really gold. It's just the value and the effort you've put in to get it. It's a sentimental reason why I want it back, so I can treasure them for the rest of my life.
And finally, an unsuccessful thief has become a little bit of an internet sensation after his bungling crime was captured on camera. The man is seen on CCTV, apparently trying to break into a car in Drogheda in Ireland. He first tries using a small stone to break into the passenger side. When that doesn't work, he switches to hurling a brick at the other window, only for it to rebound and smash into his face, knocking him to the ground. Shame. Poor fella.
Earlier today, 18-year-old Rebecca Morris from Hull was sentenced to 27 months for throwing bleach in the face of aspiring model Victoria Smith. It's the latest conviction in a series of so-called acid attacks, which it seems are on the increase. Naomi Oney, who suffered an appalling acid attack herself, investigates now for Crimewatch.
My name is Naomi. I'm 23 years old and my dream is to be a professional makeup artist. But 2 years ago, my life was put on hold when someone threw acid in my face. Now I'm trying to find out about the rise of acid attacks in the UK. I'll be asking if anything can be done to stop this horrible crime.
It is a hard type of crime to prevent because it's a cowardly act.
And hearing from someone who, like me, suffered the devastating consequences of an acid attack.
I do feel people look at me different.
It's 2 years since a former friend followed me home in disguise and sprayed acid in my face. Since then, I've had 3 major operations and lots of cosmetic surgery. I lost my eyebrows, so I have to have my eyebrows tattooed. But I'm working again and starting to get my life back on track. Now I'm meeting Darren, who was targeted in a similar attack just 8 months ago, when a complete stranger threw acid through his open car window.
Well, when they attacked me, I was mainly my eyes, you know. I wanted to cover my eyes because I didn't want to be blind.
Darren had full thickness burns over 10% of his body.
They took that skin off my leg to rebuild my face.
He had been sprayed with sulfuric acid, the same liquid my attacker used on me. I remember, you know, my face burning, but it wasn't like a burning like a hot, you know, it was a weird type of like melting.
They had to push you around in a wheelchair for a little while because you can't walk, you know. Yeah.
My attacker has been found and has been sentenced. And I can't even imagine how it must feel for you to not even, you know who's done this.
Like, I don't want them people to think that people can do this and get away with it, you know. It's like people say you got to be strong, but you have to be strong every single day of your life.
It's hard. This is one of the first times I've met another acid attack survivor. I remember after the attack feeling so alone and feeling very isolated, so it was lovely to catch up with someone and get to share similar experiences.
When people talk about acid attacks, that covers any assault using a corrosive liquid, from sulfuric acid to powerful alkalis found in cleaning products. Figures which cover 2013 to 2014 show 130 people were treated in English hospitals for assault using a corrosive substance. That's more than 3 times the number treated just a decade ago. Specialist burn surgeon Baljit Dinza is on the front line of treating acid burn victims.
Acid attack victims fall into 2 groups, really. Innocent victims, or those who are involved in criminal dealings where there's inter-gang or inter-group violence. Acid injuries cause devastating burns. Usually they're very deep and can cause life-changing scarring and devastating injuries to the eye itself. Often patients have years of treatment, and alongside the surgery and the scar therapy that they have, they'll also need significant psychological input.
Some specialists are now using laser therapy, a new treatment which aims to reduce scarring. Darren has come to this clinic on London's Harley Street to see what they can do for him.
Unfortunately, we have seen an increasing number of patients who are coming in for treatment of acid attack scars. And just this year alone, I've seen more than 5 patients. We do treat acid attack victims for free, but it's important that they understand that treatment is spread out over a fairly long time. We first met Darren back in September, and to date he's had 3 treatments, and we're thrilled with his results. He's had an incredible response very early on.
The trouble is, all this treatment takes years. In the meantime, we have to go out and face the world.
This is a charity which helps people like me and Darren who are living with facial disfigurement.
Changing Faces offers 2 main services. There's the skin camouflage service where people can learn to use special cover creams. And then there's the psychosocial support where people can talk through their feelings and learn social skills and gain confidence.
It covers it. You can still see it, but it does cover a lot, so yeah.
It's great that there's so much help out there for people like Darren and me, but these attacks really shouldn't be happening at all.
Sergeant Mike Calvert is investigating the acid attack on Darren.
This crime is a very serious crime. It destroys lives. Acid decanted out of its original packaging is very difficult to detect. It's very widely available, it's very easy to use, and it can have extremely devastating results. A small drop of this acid can burn right through all the layers of your skin. When people are caught in relation to offences of acid attacks, then I would want to see very strong prison sentences imposed.
I want them to be caught. They've done damage to me. They've took things that I can't get back. I just don't feel like Darren sometimes, you know.
My attacker was sentenced to 12 years in jail for what she did to me. But I'll have to live with the consequences for the rest of my life. I think we need tougher sentences to stop people using acid as a weapon.
Well, Naomi is with me now, along with Jaff Shah, who runs the charity for survivors of acid attacks, and Sergeant Mike Calvert, who, as you saw in Naomi's film, is investigating that attack on Darren Pigeon. First of all, if I can come to you, Naomi, welcome and thank you for being a guest reporter, as it were, for us. These attacks are premeditated. People have to think about it. They have to buy the stuff. They have to decant it. What would you say to anybody even contemplating this sort of attack?
I don't think it's something to think about. This literally does destroy people's lives, you know. It changes, you know, someone's quality of life, the amount of surgeries they have to go through, the impact it has on you physically and also mentally, and on the people's families as well.
Yeah, I want to ask you a bit about that psychological impact. We were talking about it before we came on air earlier this afternoon. I mean, you're here, you did that report, you're sitting in a live television studio. How are things psychologically for you? Do you feel rebuilt?
I'm getting there. I'm getting stronger. Yes, I feel rebuilt. Yeah.
Jeff, we think there is an increase and possibly a significant increase in these sort of attacks. Your charity has done some investigations to try to just get some more specific figures here in the UK. Tell us about that.
Yes, we've commissioned a comparative law study covering 6 jurisdictions, one of which is the UK. The interesting findings that have kind of emerged, focusing on the UK, is that one, there's probably far too easy access to acid in the first place for would-be perpetrators, and 2 is the fairly inconsistent sentencing by the part of judges on the perpetrators, and the contributory factor is mitigating circumstances or factors.
Well, let's talk then, Mike Calvert, a little bit about the justice system. Naomi's attacker is now serving a long prison sentence. What about Darren? His attacker still at liberty, hasn't been caught yet. What can you tell us?
Well, this was a totally unprovoked attack on an innocent young man. Darren was driving his car late at night through the Rayleigh area in Essex towards the Rayleigh Weir roundabout. He stopped briefly at traffic lights when he noticed a red Rover 216 containing a male and a female pulling up alongside him. But Darren didn't think anything of this encounter, and when the lights changed, he carried his journey on towards Thundersley. He drove for about a mile before he turned right into a road called Kingsmere. Now, Kingsmere is a dead end, and Darren intended on travelling to the end and to turn round, but before he could do that, he found he was boxed in by the same red car as before. A man got out of that red vehicle, approached Darren's driver's side. There was a short verbal altercation, following which the man produced a small container which he used to spray acid at Darren's face and body. After that, the suspect then threw a number of punches at Darren's head before making off from the scene. Now, this last part is significant because the attacker may have acid scarring on his hands as a result of those punches he threw.
And in terms of more of a description, do you have a good description of this guy?
Yes, we're looking for a white male in his 30s, skinny build with short, light-coloured hair. He was wearing a dark-coloured hoodie at the time of the attack, and we believe he may have been residing in the South Essex area as well.
And just briefly, you're announcing a new reward in connection with this tonight.
Yes, I can reveal a £3,000 Crime Stoppers reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for this attack.
Well, thanks to all of you, and especially thank you to you for reporting for us, Naomi. Right, still to come tonight, the search for a man wanted for questioning following the serious sexual assault of a 6-year-old in the toilets of a community centre. That's coming up very soon, but first Martin has got his own batch of CCTV for you to get cracking on with.
Yes, and we start this month with a vicious attack on a bus driver in South London. It's around 5 p.m. on a Monday in June last year. This footage, taken from a bus, shows a man crossing Penge High Street in South London with a small child. But they only just make it onto the pavement in time. He's not impressed. Seconds later, the camera at the rear of the bus shows him running after the driver. As the bus stops at traffic lights, the driver waits, unaware of what's to come. The man, with a distinctive afro haircut and carrying a small man bag, leans in through the open window, cutting the driver with a knife. You can just see the blade here. He then calmly walks away back to the child, leaving the driver in shock and with a cut over his right eye. Do you recognise this knife-wielding thug? Name, please. It's nearly 7:45 at Leeds Station in November last year. But these men aren't here for train spotting. The victim can be seen at the far end of the platform with 2 friends. He's the one in the white trainers. It appears he's laughing and joking to football fans on a waiting train. But what happens next is no laughing matter. As he's taunting the passengers, a man walks up behind him and without warning punches him, knocking him to the ground. He then waves at the people on the opposite platform, seemingly pleased with his handiwork. Police believe this is the attacker walking down the stairs seconds before the punch was thrown. The victim's jaw was broken in 2 places in the attack. Can you help put police on the right track and name the man responsible? Now, look closely at this one. A couple with a baby walk into this jeweller's in Preston in December and ask to look at bracelets for the young child. Soon after, 3 women appear to join them and loiter around the shop. And then another member of the group comes in, this time a man with a portly stomach. But 2 of the women seem to have something wrong with their headscarves. Or do they? This other camera angle shows exactly what's going on. As the women adjust their scarves, another one of the group sneaks behind them, obscured from the jeweller's view. She creeps over to a safe, which has been left open, and helps herself to the contents, £30,000 worth in total. As she sneaks back to the other side of the shop, those headscarves are causing problems again. Right on cue, the other women lift them up to hide their accomplice as she escapes from the shop. Aware she's left with the loot, the rest of the party lose all interest in the bracelets and make a quick exit too. By the time the staff realise what's happened, the crafty jewel thieves are long gone. So who are they? It's a Sunday at this church in Bristol in November last year, and this man may well want to confess his sins. He makes his way to a stand holding candles of remembrance and prayer, and fumbles in his pockets. He's not interested in worshipping to the heavens, though. It's the charity box underneath he wants. He pulls out what appears to be a specially adapted tool and prepares it ready for his evil crime. After a few minutes of fumbling around, he manages to prise open the box. He takes out the cash and simply walks away. Police believe the same man targeted the same church the previous month, again using a specially adapted tool to open the charity box, which children and elderly people had earlier paid into. So who is this unholy thief? Police are praying you can name him tonight. If you need another look, all the CCTV is on the website. Call and text the numbers on screen if you can help.
Now, you may remember an investigation that we showed you last year into what's known as distraction burglary. We spent time with the specialist police teams on the trail of these cowardly thieves who typically target the elderly. Unfortunately, it's a problem that doesn't seem to be going away, and now 6 forces have come together to track down one particularly prolific gang thought to be responsible for over 30 offences. And DI Ben Wright from Hertfordshire Police is leading the hunt. Evening, Ben. What more can you tell us?
Hello, Kirsty. Yes, this gang is responsible for 35 targeted distraction burglaries against the elderly and vulnerable. The offences that we've been able to confirm were committed between the 15th of September 2014 and the 24th of October 2014. We know that a variety of ruses have been used to gain entry into these vulnerable people's address, right from them claiming to be police officers, council officials and bogus maintenance men.
You said vulnerable there. Just to be clear, particularly they're targeting the elderly and particularly the elderly that live alone.
Indeed, the targeted demographic is between 75 to 94 years of age in this series. Some of them were immobile and infirm, and the majority of them lived alone.
Well, we have spoken to a victim of the gang, 88-year-old Margaret. She answered the door to a man who claimed that he was from the water company. Once inside, he distracted her, whilst 2 other men came in and started rummaging through her bedroom and her lounge.
I had every faith in him that he was genuine, and I felt I was conned. It shakes you up, and you're lost for words then what to do when you see somebody in the bedroom. That's why I broke down. Yeah, the shock of it. Can't trust people now. I can't trust anybody now.
It's terrible, isn't it? Well, we can look at some potentially important CCTV. Now, it was taken from the home of another elderly lady. In the footage, you'll see that it appears that a man gains entry by claiming to be from the police.
Okay. Police officers? Oh, do you? OK.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, love. How are you?
All right, thanks.
We've come to visit you about, obviously, you've had a previous break-in before in the past.
Oh, yeah.
To come in just to talk about just obvious previous and things like that.
And I've got this.
What's them, sensors?
It's a camera.
Oh, you've got cameras, have you?
Yeah.
All right, that
I've
one,
got
yeah.
the camera there.
All right, no worries. I'll get my booklets and I shall bring them up to you. I'll buzz on and I'll come straight back up to you again, yes?
Yes, she had a camera and it was a very clear picture too. You think you might even have the name of this man?
Yes, indeed. He's recently been identified as a male called Thomas Hallathin. He has multiple aliases. He also goes by the name Connor. Originates from Western Ireland, but he also has links to West Midlands, Nottinghamshire, Hertfordshire and London.
There's a car you're looking for too.
Indeed. Linked to a great number of the offences in the series is this silver Audi A3 Sport model. It's distinctive in as far as it has a sunroof, which is rare for this particular model type. We're also keen to identify 2 occupants in the vehicle, which you will see here.
Yes, there they are. Now, there'll be people watching tonight who do live alone and might be getting on a bit. What advice would you give to them?
Indeed, our advice is simple. If you're unsure, don't answer the door. If you're not expecting one, please keep that door shut. Challenge people, ask for identification, and I would also urge people not to leave any large cash amounts in their properties.
OK, all good advice, Ben. Thanks very much indeed for that. If you can help police with that gang's whereabouts, then please do call the usual number. It's 0500 600 600, or, of course, you can speak anonymously to Crime Stoppers if you prefer. They're on 0800 555 111. Still to come tonight, the cold-blooded killer who mingled with the mourners at the funeral of the teenage girl that he had murdered.
We didn't have the forensic evidence, we didn't have the witnesses, but what we had was a very, very strong story when you put all the small pieces together.
But first, more wanted faces with Martin.
We start this time with David Carey Williams. Detectives in South Wales want to question him in connection with numerous child sex offences against the same victim. Now, this is the only photo we have of Williams, which is believed to have been taken when he was in his 20s. But he's 50 now, and experts think that this is how he might now look. He has friends and family in South Wales and Pembrokeshire, and may be working in the tourist or leisure industry in Sri Lanka. Next is convicted fraudster Glenn Moore. But he's not behind bars where he should be. He and his wife set up a bogus charity supposedly to raise money for terminally ill and disabled children. But instead, they pocketed over £200,000 for themselves. Moore's wife Lynn is currently serving 4 years in prison, but Glenn went on the run before he was handed his 7.5-year sentence. Police think he may now be in Spain or Cyprus. And do you recognise 29-year-old Jonathan Royal? He was jailed for 5 years for drug dealing in 2010 and released early on licence, but he hasn't stuck to his conditions and is now wanted back in prison. Royal is extremely muscular and has friends and family in Manchester, Liverpool, Bournemouth and Plymouth. He's also known to be violent, so don't approach him. And finally, tonight we have Peter Whiteley. He's a convicted sex offender who's supposed to let police know where he's living, but he hasn't, so he's wanted back in custody. He's 50 years old and leads a transient lifestyle, so could be living anywhere in the country, although he does have links to Norfolk, Peterborough, Humberside, Doncaster and London. Some of his bottom teeth are missing, and he has tattoos of the words love and hate on his knuckles. Call and text on the usual numbers if you recognise any of tonight's faces. And of course, they're all online, as well as on the red button, until midnight.
Now, police in London need your help to find a man they want to speak to in connection with a serious sexual assault on a 6-year-old boy. It happened in the middle of the day at a community centre in King's Cross, just yards from parents and from other children too. Well, DI Neil Rawlinson is leading the investigation. Evening, Neil. Tell us what happened.
On the 1st of July last year, a young mum and her 2 children went to the Calthorpe project in Gray's Inn Road, King's Cross, London. While she looked after the little one, her eldest child, a 6-year-old boy, went to play with some friends and was supervised by another parent. At about 1:40 p.m, the little boy needed the toilet and went to the facilities at the venue. Unbeknown to anybody, there was a man already inside those toilets. He pulled the little boy into the cubicle, locked the door and sexually assaulted him. The little boy managed to raise the alarm with his mum, the police were called, and a member of staff at the venue did try to follow the suspect in the street, but did lose him.
It's really horrendous, isn't it? Well, of course, as you can imagine, incredibly distressing for this little boy and for his family too. The mum has spoken to us about the impact of this assault. She's anonymous to protect the identity of her son.
I went outside to look for my kids, and my older one came running out and said something like, "Mummy, Mummy, there was a man in the toilet and he did something to me and I didn't like it." He was very upset. The first 3 days he was all over the place. He drew monsters on his body. Hopefully we will get the therapy sorted so we can sort it out and he will grow up as normal as possible and just forget about it.
So what do you know about the suspect?
Well, witnesses from the centre describe him as a white man with quite a large belly, between 55 and 65 years old. He had dark chin-length hair with either blonde or white bits on the end. He, we believe, had an Irish accent, and the clothes he was wearing on the day were beige trousers, a checked shirt, and quite a distinctive yellow baseball cap with a pattern on the front.
All right. Neil, you want our viewers to take a look at some CCTV. Tell us about this.
Okay, yes, we've got some CCTV from the day of the incident. We've got a chap matching that description outside. He crosses the road at the right time, heads north in Gray's Inn Road toward King's Cross train station, which is where unfortunately we do lose him.
It was just horrible to hear the mother say the little boy was drawing monsters on his body in the days after this attack. How's the little one doing now?
He is still traumatised by what happened. I mean, this is a random attack on a little boy by a complete stranger, and it's not only affected him but the whole family. They are receiving support, and we're trying to catch the offender. Hopefully, if we do, that will help with the healing process.
Well, we wish the family all the best, of course. If you recognise this man, or you think you know who he is, do the right thing. Call us on the usual number, 0500 600 600, and remember, if you have been a victim of crime yourself, you can call the victim support line, 0808 16 89 111.
Now, updates on previous cases, starting with news that a paedophile has been jailed following a Crimewatch appeal. 84-year-old John Hayford was persuaded to hand himself in by a family member who was watching the programme, which showed Hayford caught on CCTV sexually assaulting a 9-year-old girl in a supermarket in 2012. A second victim was identified during the investigation, and Hayford was found guilty at Harrow Crown Court in December of sexually assaulting a 7-year-old in 1991. He's been sentenced to 2 years in prison.
Now, in March last year, we asked for your help in finding this man, Aidan Harris Bennett, who was wanted for ordering the shooting of a man in a fast food restaurant in Birmingham. The victim was left paralysed. Bennett was arrested following our appeal and last week convicted at Birmingham Crown Court of attempted murder. He was jailed for 30 years.
In October last year, we showed you this footage of 2 robberies at convenience stores in Walsall in the West Midlands. In both robberies, the shopkeepers were attacked with bottles. Police say they received a great response from viewers, which led to 2 men, 33-year-old Darren Goulburn and 32-year-old Christopher Donnelly, being arrested. Last month, both pleaded guilty at Wolverhampton Crown Court and were jailed for 5.5 years. A great result.
Now, you may remember this shocking footage we showed you in December of a robbery at a bookmaker's in Bletchley and Milton Keynes. Viewers called in with 2 names, Vasile Irene and Georgi Pukaru. Well, they were duly arrested and both pleaded guilty at their first hearing. They were sentenced in January to 38 and 40 weeks in prison.
And we end with the great results on 2 wanted faces. Last month we showed you this man, Matthew Waters, who was wanted for failing to stick to his prison release conditions. He'd previously been jailed for 6 years for robbery. Information from a viewer led police to Manchester, where he was arrested and sent back to prison. He also pleaded guilty to burgling a house and was sentenced to an extra 8 months just last Friday. And finally, yet another man is back in prison thanks to your help. Kenneth Simmons escaped from prison where he was serving an indeterminate sentence for stabbing a man. He featured as a wanted face in December and was arrested as a direct result of that appeal. It all goes to show just how important all your calls are. Thank you very much indeed. Great stuff.
We first featured the case of Claire Tiltman, or Tilt, as she was known to her many friends, back in 1993. The schoolgirl, who'd only just turned 16, was stabbed 9 times in an apparently random attack. Well, now, 2 decades on, and thanks in part to a change in the law, her killer has at last faced justice. The murder of Claire Tiltman has haunted the small town of Greenhithe in Kent since it happened in 1993. United in grief, her family and friends never gave up hope of finding justice and unmasking the killer in their midst. Claire, who had just turned 16, was studying for her GCSE exams.
She was a lovely kid, you know. It's just such a shame.
She wanted to go in the fire brigade.
Yeah. That was her intention. No one would change it.
She was always good fun, never shied away from being an individual. She knew what she wanted to be, and she just never really followed the crowd.
Claire was quite a big character, really great fun to be around, never a dull moment.
We're a mischievous bunch, I'm afraid. Not naughty, but mischievous. I really do miss those days at school, but after what happened, it changed everything.
On the day of her murder, Claire had gone to sit her last mock exam.
I've got a job done, please. She got on and came straight up to me and, you know, did the usual hellos. She'd been speaking to her mum about what she would do after her GCSEs and where she'd go to college or whatever. She wanted a bit of advice, so she planned to come down after school.
Yeah, all right, come round tonight.
That evening, she set out for Vicky's home.
Normally she wouldn't have walked to my house, she'd have got a lift, but her dad's car was stolen just before Christmas. It wasn't late, it was like 6 o'clock, but it was already dark.
Claire was found a short time later on London Road. She had been stabbed at least 9 times and died at the scene.
And what became really clear very early on was that this was, a brutal attack on a 16-year-old girl, and she'd only just turned 16 as well. Whoever did it, was going to be a very, very dangerous individual. And what stemmed from there really was probably one of the largest murder investigations that Kent Police had run up until that stage.
Detectives turned to Crimewatch, and a reconstruction was shown.
It's not clear why Claire went into this alley.
Claire's parents appealed to viewers.
I don't think I could live with myself knowing what that person's done. And maybe he was capable of doing it again.
Oh, and Taylor, that must be your fear. This guy's going to do it again.
Yes, it is.
We had a fantastic public response to that, but what it didn't give was that eyewitness or that key bit of evidence that was required. There was no forensic evidence, there was no witnesses to the actual attack itself, and eventually the trial went cold.
I can just remember the heavy and sick feeling inside, feeling sick at the thought of the pain or the level of fear that she would have felt.
You always think that something like that would happen to somebody else, not somebody close to you. And I remember feeling, how can the world carry on? How can all these people around me be going to school and work, and Claire's not doing that?
Detectives continued to work on the case, but it would take 2 years for a suspect to emerge. Colin Ash Smith was brought into custody in 1995.
He was arrested shortly after attacking a 21-year-old woman in the street. He brutally attacked her with a knife. He stabbed her a number of times.
His distinctive white Ford Capri was seen in the area.
That was only 400 metres away from the scene of where Claire was attacked, and the circumstances were just so similar.
Officers investigating the 1995 attack searched the car and found half a school tie.
It was actually a crime scene investigator who remembered an attack back in 1988 where a tie had been used to strangle a woman who'd been kidnapped, raped and stabbed a number of times and left for dead. Miraculously, she survived. But the half a school tie that was found in Ash Smith's car matched, and we knew without a doubt that he was the attacker both in 1988 and in 1995.
Assault plan number 1, 50% success.
And when detectives scoured his house, they found writings in which he described the 1988 attack.
My masterpiece.
As well as other crimes.
And a woman aged around where to hide body, escape route, a railway station, down to the last detail.
If what he'd written in those diaries was correct, this was a very, very dangerous man. Now, from that time, Colin Ash Smith was a really strong suspect for this murder.
About the murder that's been...
He'd actually phoned in the day after Claire's murder to the incident room, reportedly seeing somebody on a zebra crossing. And what we also knew was that he actually knew Claire and her family. And in fact, when you look at the footage from Claire's funeral, he actually attended that funeral.
Ash Smith was jailed for the attempted murders he committed in 1988 and 1995. But at the time, the law prevented prosecutors from using these crimes and bad character as evidence for Claire's murder. Without that, they didn't have enough to convict him.
This would have been a really frustrating time for the officers involved in the case. The investigation continued, and it needed more.
Ash Smith's parents stood by their son.
Neither myself, my husband Aubrey Ash Smith, or my son Colin Ash Smith had any involvement at all with the murder of Claire Tiltman.
But in 1997, his father was found guilty of perverting the course of justice after admitting that he disposed of a knife belonging to his son. Prosecutors said this had hampered the investigation into Claire's murder.
Obviously, quite pleased, but obviously I still want the person that killed Claire. Then I'll be happy.
Why have you come every day? Why have you...
I'll sooner not comment on that, thank you.
Claire's parents always fought to secure justice for their daughter. But in 2008, Linda passed away, aged just 56. And in 2012, Cliff made a final appeal from his nursing home.
Mean everything, you know. It would mean everything. Never given up hope. Never. Never have done, never will do.
He died a few months later.
When Cliff passed away, we didn't want her to be forgotten.
As the 20th anniversary of her murder approached, Claire's friends campaigned to keep her name in the public eye. A candlelit vigil was attended by hundreds of people.
She was always referred to as a murdered girl who was killed in Greenhive. Actually, what it allowed us to tell people was what she was about, what she liked doing, trying to get justice, but also trying to make sure that she wasn't forgotten in it all.
Meanwhile, changes only if a judge deemed it relevant. With renewed purpose, the team began reviewing the case. They returned to Ash Smith's writings.
He was denying that they were reality, but just fantasy.
In full swing of my psycho state of mind, broke into bathroom at back of house.
And detectives discovered there was yet more truth to his words.
Shredded a few clothes in laundry.
It took quite a long time, but we actually tracked down the victims involved in that case.
A list of women's names found in his jail cell also revealed another victim.
On one occasion, she'd been actually in her bed at her house when he turned up outside, went into her house and went into her bedroom, and was only disturbed by her brother.
But they were still missing the crucial evidence that linked Ash Smith to Claire's death.
So we then went on to speak to people that Ash Smith had actually been in prison with. And we found somebody who recounted a story that Colin Ash Smith had said, that he'd seen somebody, a woman on a zebra crossing, and that he'd snapped and he'd attacked her.
Police realised he could only have been talking about Claire's murder.
That was the closest I think we were ever going to get to an admission In the 1988 attack and the 1995 attack, there was no zebra crossing involved. Claire would have walked across the zebra crossing just before she was attacked, and it was in the area that Colin Ash-Smith put himself in when he phoned up the incident room on the day following. We didn't have the forensic evidence, we didn't have the witnesses, but what we had was a very, very strong story when you put all the small pieces together.
Colin Ash-Smith was finally charged with Claire Tiltman's murder. A judge allowed all the evidence about his previous crimes and bad character to be heard by the jury. In December, following a unanimous guilty verdict, Ash-Smith was given a life sentence with a minimum of 21 years.
The feeling we had, I think, was relief. Absolute relief that finally there's justice.
Then it was tears, like you've not cried for a long time. I think the real grief coming from all those years, you couldn't believe it would come now.
It was an old-fashioned detective work from so many people over so many years that have brought this case to a resolution. The wider tragedy is the fact that Claire's parents aren't here to see justice being brought.
A guilty verdict doesn't bring Claire back, but it does allow us to draw a line under it and move on, remember her for who she was and the great person she was in our lives.
Well, that's everything for now. But remember, all of tonight's appeals, including the police incident room numbers, are on the Crimewatch website. You can also take another look at Martin's wanted faces and CCTV by pressing the red button on your remote. That's available until midnight tonight. And, of course, you can keep up to date with how all of our cases progress via Twitter. Follow at BBC Crimewatch. The phone lines, well, they'll stay open until midnight tomorrow. We're going to be back later tonight with an update programme after the news. Viewers in Northern Ireland are going to have to wait until 11:15. In Scotland, 11:35. But for now, from everyone here on the programme, thanks for your calls. They make a difference. Bye-bye.